Okay, great. Hello, welcome everybody, and thanks for coming to class today. Just got to get my watch off here. This is I haven't this I don't know what's happening just the last few months, but just I've been very very busy at work and just the way it is, and so I was hoping to do another class, just another quick recording before this particular sort of question and answer one. But I'm actually going to teach a tiny bit just for a few minutes for some of that material. Last 2 months, just work was really hard. You can tell, I know if I've got this sort of jet lag voice where I'm just kind of strung out like this. So I had this month two flights, one to Korea and one to Hong Kong. I just got back from Hong Kong 2 days ago. Yeah, because then yesterday I flew back to Nelson. So I hadn't been outside in Hong Kong since before COVID. If you flew to Hong Kong, they just lock you in your room. Sometimes my friends were sometimes locked in their hotel room for 3 days, like being in jail, which is crazy. So this was a chance where you can actually leave the hotel and go out. And Hong Kong's one of my favorite places. So it was great. But the flights were really long because there's a big volcano going off in Russia right now. So you have to divert around it. So everything was super long. So I brought my computer, all my Dharma material to teach, and then I'd sit down in the hotel room and I'm like, bleh. It's like I couldn't even keep I was so jet lagged. I couldn't keep my eyes open. So I'm always shooting. I mean, not to sort of boast or anything, but I'm always shooting for quality, not quantity. Like I always say I'm not the Instagram guy where it's just like content every day where it's like, hi guys, love you. Just want to remind you about karma. Okay, bye. Like just some like 10-second message on your account. I've always felt like it's just good to do like a class where it's like there's really good content and I can spend time with the material. So I'm not wasting anyone else's time. I'm not just my own time. So I always felt like if I'm so jet lagged and I can't think straight and it's really awful, it's just like really mediocre material. So here I am. Anyway, just wanted to give that as a little bit of an explanation before we start here. So today's just going to be, I'm going to do, we'll have to take a bit of a break for a couple of weeks while we're in retreat. We're doing a Vajrayana retreat with Rinpoche soon enough. But on the other side of that, we can start the classes again. And just to sum up, we're just doing vows and commitments on this sort of course on Buddhist ethics. So we've just sort of discussed the very general aspects of refuge commitments, refuge vows and commitments. We're going to go into so I've talked about vows and commitments for refuge, as well as I'm going to talk a little bit about the 10 non-virtues again today. And then we're having a discussion today about that. And then the next part will be on the Bodhisattva vows and commitments and the root downfalls of Bodhisattva vows, 18 root downfalls, and the secondary root downfalls. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll have a question and answer about that. So I wanted two sort of discussion question and answer courses, one about vows and commitments for refuge and one about vows and commitments for Bodhisattva vows, because just there's a lot of material. And this is kind of like nitty gritty stuff. And it's fun to talk about. So there you go. So that's what we're talking about today. It's just sort of the question and answer for the refuge vows and commitments. Okay, so let's just take a moment here just we'll do a little bit of a shorter meditation here just to sort of give us a bit more time for discussion and sharing. So we can just sort of settle ourselves here in the space and start to do our visualization. So we have a wide open space here. Brown black lapis lazuli, beautiful blue sky above us. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings of samsara. And we have the people closest to us moving outwards into to the beings that we don't know, but are still karmically connected to. So we've got, mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and people we like the least in front of us as objects of compassion and healing. Then people from all over the world. So human beings from all different backgrounds and places. Countless animal beings from the animal realms, from very small like insects and little life forms all the way up to big mammals and birds and so forth. All the beings from the spirit world, you can think of bardo beings from the elemental planes, astral planes, ethereal planes, all these different other sort of geographies of the spirit world are all here with us. Celestial beings like gods and demigods, and countless beings from lower states of rebirth, hell beings and hungry ghost beings. So we're all here as sort of like a big family, meditating together. all trying to get enlightened. So in the sky above us and in front of us, of course, right here, I'm just going to very simply visualize beautiful Buddha Shakyamuni, the Buddha, made out of golden energy or light in the sky. And he's in typical form, golden sort of energy body. He's in lotus position, wearing the 3 robes of a monk. If you'd like, you can put him on a lion throne, a lotus sun and moon seat, if you like. Otherwise, you can just have him like floating in midair. And because he's made out of energy, you can kind of see right through him. So he's wearing 3 robes of a monk, and he's got his right hand is in the Sadhu Mudra, and left hand has a begging bowl with medicinal nectar in it. And now looking at his heart, sort of smaller, is his higher angelic form, his Sambhogakaya form of the divine couple, Conqueror Vajradhara and Vajradhara. And they're beautiful, young, kind of like sort of older teenagers, and they're in sexual embrace, and they've got beautiful sapphire blue bodies wearing crowns and jewelry and so forth. And Vajradhara has a bell in his left hand, Dorje in his right, Vajra scepter. Vajradhara has a skull cup with medicinal nectar in her left hand and curved chopper knife in her right. So just all of us sentient beings, we're all just looking in the sky here, taking refuge, the Buddha. And we all say together, I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Now generating bodhicitta here. Words, all of our virtues, our intentions to reach enlightenment for the welfare of all beings, that we lead them to enlightenment as well. We say, through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Generating the 4 measurable thoughts of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. And may everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. So seeing Buddha Shakyamuni in the sky here shining, we now do the 7 limb practice to make the practice Buddhist. So prostration, first limb here. Just feeling that when all lists and all sitting beings are making prostrations to Buddha Shakyamuni. So physical prostrations, for verbal prostrations, we're saying praises, mantras, and dharanis. And then with our sort of for mental prostration, we have a mind of great faith in Buddha Shakyamuni and the teachings and the Dharma in particular. And just seeing that this is the most sacred thing in sort of our higher nature, so to speak. Just sort of acknowledging this and showing great, great love and respect. And then offering here, opening our hearts to receive the teachings, making sort of offering in thanks and gratitude. And just feel that we're just sending out billions of beautiful flowers in all directions. Like you can send out billions of butter lamps or candles. In confession and rejoicing, so standing up in front of all sentient beings, here I am, we acknowledge and declare, confess, I guess, on one level, just all of our faults, sort of show up naked in front of everybody here. Here I am, here's all the bad things I've done, the bad parts of my character and so forth, how I've hurt myself, how I've hurt others, all the ways I'm failing myself, failing others, and just say, I'm on the process of self-education here, self-overcoming. I'm going to outgrow all this, let all this go, heal all this, make up for all this, and leave the darkness behind, walking into the light. It's an old Bruce Cockburn lyric where he says, if I'm what is it? If I'm casting a shadow, it's because I'm moving into the light, which is a good line there. And so along with that, we can rejoice even in our own Dharma progress, rejoice in all the virtue and goodness in the world and other people, and rejoice in all the Buddhas and their goodness and virtue, and that they're sharing that selflessly with us. Asking Buddhas to stay and to teach. So Buddha Shakyamuni, all of our teachers are gurus, all the Buddhas, please always stay with us. We're asking Buddhas here, just making this bridge, this connection with them. Please always stay, please always teach and guide us. So for this, we can sort of send up in our mind a lion throne for them to sit on in their life. This is kind of like the little throne or the little place always in our mind, almost like you got the little angel on your shoulder. They're always with us. We're always sort of opening that channel up, turning the TV on, so to speak, of their teachings to receive it. Sort of join their Wi-Fi, please continue to teach us. And so then the little Dharma chakra, we can send up the eight golden 8-spoke Dharma chakra, representing the Eightfold Path. Please always transmit teachings to us, guide us. So we get all their downloads, so to speak. And finally, just dedicating everything we do right now for their little meditation session together, all of our studying, all of our meditation, everything may be for the awakening of all sentient beings, enlightenment of all beings. Here's one more act of generosity here in opening our heart for giving. So sort of circle of giving here, reciprocity. We're holding the purified mandala, purified universe at our hearts as an offering. Mount Meru and four lands, sun and moon, and so forth. We go the ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers. A great mountain, four lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Om Edam Guru Ranamanda Tiami, we send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious teachers. Upon seeing that here, just golden light, like sunlight's coming down into us and all sentient beings. So it's like the clouds are parting and all sunbeams are coming out, giving us spiritual power, wisdom and compassion, sort of bring all of our spiritual energy up a level. Request Buddhist Shakyamuni, say, please Buddhist Shakyamuni, whose mind is synthesis of all Buddha jewels, speech is synthesis of all Dharma jewels, body synthesis of all Sangha jewels. Being represented and embodied in all of our teachers, please grant us your blessings of body, speech, and mind. And just with the requests like that, just Buddhist Shakyamuni sort of sparkling, it's really, really small, and just like very slow, but just like a falling star, you sort of glittering like a little piece of gold or diamond, comes down to the crown of our head here, enters the crown of our head, is made out of light, so we can do that. Slowly descends in front of our spine and our central channel into our heart. And once he reaches our heart, our root mind, he just dissolves into that. So you've got boiling water in the pot and you drop a little dollop of butter and the butter instantly disappears, the golden butter. Same thing just at our heart, he melts. And we can just think all of our teachers, all holy beings, all their energy is going directly into our mind here. All their compassion, their wisdom and power directly into us. Feel great, great spaciousness here, openness and open heart. And I would say, oh joy, oh bliss being an experience of totality, being completely fulfilled and never dissatisfied, restless, angst-ridden, that's all gone. You feel just a great sense of feeling one, sense of totality, one with everything. And so at rest, bliss, sort of deep relaxation and bliss. deep, deep contentment. And the joy being a sort of positive power, joyful positive power that affirms everything is created, has the power to do anything in this space. Okay, so just coming out of short meditation there. Okay, welcome everybody, and thanks for coming. I just a quick little teaching that I just wanted to give here was just on the quickly on the 10 non-virtues. We've covered this before. I know we talked about this obviously in the karma class and stuff like that. These kinds of ideas. I mentioned a little bit of the things before as well, but just sort of as a little bit of a review. I just wanted to bring this up. So why, karmically, we're having our vows and our commitments, our refuge vows and commitments. Because this, by taking these refuge vows and commitments, we're creating the kind of energetic container to be a Buddhist. Like, I'm taking refuge. This means I'm taking refuge in Three Jewels. I'm sort of an official Buddhist. But what's happening energetically by doing those things, by having those vows and commitments, what's happening? Well, I will remind you in the all the teachings that we did on from the Abhidhamma Kosha on karma. And of course, you can access this always in LamRim, Tsongkhapa's LamRim Chenmo, or any of the great LamRim books, like Dalam from First Pancha Lama, or anything else, the discussions on karma. So with karma, remember, there's 4 results. Anytime there's an action of body, speech, and mind, we can remember what happens after having studied the sort of the different schools of emptiness. We talked about karma when we were discussing the stuff from Shantideva, for instance, the view on karma of the lower schools, the view on karma in particular of the mind only or Yogacara Chittamantra school. So what happens when we, in Chittamantra school, which is adopted by the Madhyamika school, that's seen, the Chittamantra school is seen as a very profound understanding of karma. When you create an action, a body, speech, and mind, what happens? Well, there's like an energy that's created at Bakchak in Tibetan, or usually it's translated as imprint. It's the idea that this energy that then, like a seed, it's a good analogy here, but of course we could probably use better analogies down, like emails or apps or downloading something or whatever in our age. But in sort of the old days when Buddhist teaching, they're back in India and Nepal 2,500 years ago, we have a seed. And of course, what happens when the seed starts to grow, it's watered, it gets sunlight or something, what does it produce? It produces a mind in a relationship with an object. So a mind having an experience. There's an experiential event, something happens. And the mind and the object are structured together. Like the object looks a certain way and the mind's a certain way. That ends up, everything taken together, you get a certain kind of an experience. So at any given moment, we are producing reality. We're creating the movie that we're in. We're in the matrix of our own karma, so to speak. So in the matrix of our own karma, stuff's happening to us, and then we see things in a certain way, and those things are interdependent or together. So that's what karma is. That's what's so amazing, is that we're ending up creating worlds. We are world building, we are world making. And just like a video game, we have an avatar of ourselves in the world. So not only is the world created, there's actually, a little sense of self, almost like a little, like a little avatar, or your own sort of online persona or whatever. So this is what karma does. So what are the four results of karma? So when we're creating all this, when this world is being created with ourselves in it, being, got a mind and an object together, there's four results. So the first one is that the bigger substantial result of that imprint is what they call the ripening quality, ripening energy of karma, which is the realm of rebirth. So the most fundamental thing of karma is that there's a general world that's created from karma. So I end up sort of in a specific place within samsara, right? So it's just like, what part of Europe are you doing your vacation? Am I in Italy? Am I in Romania? Am I in whatever, Paris or whatever? There's sort of the general spot that you end up within samsara, general kind of a world. So that is the realm of rebirth. So we know that there's three positive realms of rebirth in samsara: human realm, demigod or god realm, and of course the lower parts of rebirth being animal realm, hungry ghost, or hell realms. So that's the general thing, is that those are usually for that kind of ripening. We talk about throwing karma, the heaviest karma, like let's say killing, for instance, that creates a world right away. Like that's like, you're going to end up in a certain kind of world because of that particular karma, because it's so heavy. So the second result is a result consistent with the cause. So sort of the general adage is, what you put out is what you get back. The kind of energy that you're projecting out is the kind of experience or the mood of the world that you're going to be living in, right? So if I'm a negative person doing negative things, the kind of stuff I'm seeing in my life, the experience I'm having, the kind of world that I end up living in is, the same kind of thing. So there's these kinds of karmas, we can talk about the mixed karmas, where, like, let's say you end up in hell, but because it's a mixed karma, maybe it's not like that. I'm just saying, maybe a bit of a joke. It's hell, but it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm in hell, but I got this amazing apartment, and oh my God, the cafeteria is great. And it's like, it still sucks, but it's like, on the whole, I ended up in the good part of hell, so to speak, right? Or vice versa, of course, as we know, you can end up in a good place, but have really, really bad experiences, right? So you have these kinds of mixed karmas. So number three is the consistency, which they always say is the worst part of karma, which is the tendency to repeat. In other words, an attraction to repeat the ingrained habits and the desire to sort of do that karma over and over again. So getting in a bit of a feedback loop where, I'm responding to, can be a positive feedback loop that you're in. But let's just talk about the negative feedback loop. If I'm the kind of person that's always being mean to everybody, saying mean things, harsh speech, the tendency is to do that more and more and more, and even react to the harsh speech or harshness coming back at me. So it's like a corkscrew where you're digging yourself in deeper. And then the environment is the environmental cause, or the last one, which is, how do you experience the world around you? Which, of course, what is the mood, the overall energy? What's the world, the general characteristics of the world that I end up living in or end up creating? So we talked about that before. So you can see, I'll go over this very quickly here. But so, for instance, with killing, anytime killing is, of course, on a continuum from actually killing people, or suicide, even abortion. The personal result for you would be that your life is short, low energy, you're always sick. The environmental result, food and drink is always inferior, disease, beings around you die before living a full life. There's killing, there's war, there's these kinds of things. Stealing, anything of value. Personal result, you don't have enough to live on, you're lacking resources. Environmental result, you'll end up living in a world of hunger, few crops, spoiled food, people's property isn't respected, there's a lot of corruption, this kind of thing. Sexual misconduct, any kind of sort of hurtful intimacy there. Personal result, inconsistent people around you, competition from your partner, people you can't rely on them, people you don't have commitments, or you're abusing other people's intimacy. Of course, your intimacy is being abused by other people. Environmental result, filthy, unpleasant places to be. the world you end up creating through that. Lying, giving the wrong impression, saying what's not true. Of course, personal result, no one believes you, everyone's deceiving you, as you're in a dishonest, corrupt, sort of crooked world. Again, environmental result, no cooperation. You can't work well with other people. People cheat you. And it's interesting, you are afraid, you're in a hostile kind of environment. Divisive speech, splitting people up, politics, this kind of stuff, alienating people. Personal result, you lose friends, everyone's fighting, undesirable friends, there's always drama in your life. Environmental results, the world you end up living is uneven split, hard to travel, hard to link up with people, you can't get together with people, these kinds of things. Fearful places. Harsh talk, bad effect is sarcasm, swearing. This is kind of how you are. I know I spent a lot of my life being this way myself. Again, what's it like? You're hearing unpleasant things. People want to fight with you. You end up being sort of in a hostile environment, right? Even the ground, there can be obstacles, poison, dangerous, threatening places, and so forth. I always laugh because sometimes on the plane, when I work, it's like that, it's super negative. And I always think, oh man, look at these people. This is like a really bad place. But I always got to remember, it's like, this is the world I've created by swearing or being kind of like sort of a bit of a negative guy myself, right? So then finishing up here, we've got idle talk, meaningless chatter, criticism, gossip, disputes, whining, complaining. Excuse me. What happens on a personal level? No one listens to you. People disrespect you. No one thinks what you say or believe has any value. So you lack confidence, you lack self-esteem, so forth. And then in the environmental result, nothing can grow. Things are frail. There's no leisure time. There's sort of inconsistency like that. Craving, in other words, covetousness, wanting other people's possessions or qualities, being jealous of other people, these kinds of things. Then the personal result is you're dominated by attachment, desire, never satisfied with what you have. So whatever you get, it's never good enough. You don't like anything that you have. And then everything, what's interesting, the environmental result, the world you live in is a world where everything's always decreasing or losing value or falling apart. Malice, same thing as wishing other people to suffer. Again, then personal result, you're always angry, you never get help, you're hurting, being hurt by other people, you're in a real hostile, negative place where people are always mean to you. And of course, you live in a world of chaos, disease, evil, danger, this kind of thing, all this sort of negative qualities like that. And finally, wrong view. In particular, as always, the worst wrong view is, of course, not believing in karma and emptiness from a Buddhist point of view. That's what it is. So the personal result is, of course, that you're ignorant and can be even deceitful for yourself or other people. The environmental result is that there's a real lack of happiness. Nothing can help you, nothing can protect you, because of course you don't know karma, and so you don't know refuge. And so you're taking refuge in the wrong kinds of things and you're suffering. So there you go. We talked about all that before. I didn't want to go into this, but as I said before, my dear friend always says, one of her teachers, so, your reality is your morality. In other words, the reality you live in is tied to the energy you're putting out, how you're treating other people. So how you're treating other people on an ethical level literally is world making. It is creating the world that you end up living, creating the avatar of the self that's being projected in that world. So it's really important. And this is, we had 2 courses on karma because of that. So I just want to, I know we've talked about this before, remind everybody again. So of course, usually with karma, as you know, we present the negative stuff to watch out for. But you can, of course, they're giving you this to reverse engineer it. If we're talking about the 4 non-virtues, what happens when you kill, you steal, blah, 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 the negative world you end up creating. But let's talk about the positive world. So just on the other hand, just flip it around, where we say we want to make beautiful worlds, and we want to create beautiful selves in these worlds, beautiful computer program. And so look at it that way. So for instance, instead of killing, we preserve life, we honor life, we think life is sacred. Instead of lying, we always be honest and tell the truth. Instead of stealing, we respect everyone's property, their opinions, we respect them as being different from ourselves and having value. Sexual misconduct, we have positive, wholesome intimacy with others. Instead of gossip, we I guess we don't gossip about people. We respect other people. Instead of divisive speech and hurtful speech, we have speech that brings everyone together, and we're kind to people. Instead of having malice, we are always wanting the best for people, instead of not saying anything mean about anyone, not having bad thing to say about people, and always rejoicing and wanting good things to happen to people, even people you don't like. Covetousness, not being attached, but rejoicing other people. Wow, that guy won the lottery. Great. That's amazing. He paid his mortgage off. Fantastic. Wow, that's great. I'm happy for you. And then wrong view, right view. Always think about what we're talking now, karma and emptiness. Always making your vows and your morality the first thing that's important. And so what happens is you're in the good world producing thing. There was a video game I used to play with friends. When was it now? It's all big blur. But anyways, years ago, you guys, I don't know, maybe you don't care about these things, but it was, and there's been a lot of games like this, but there was, I think it's a Japanese manufacturer, but they made this game that I just love called Flower. And what the guy said is that all video games, it's like running around killing things or this kind of thing. He's like, I'm just going to make a video game where it's just beautiful things. And so what it was is you're this little breeze or whatever, and then you just fly around and you open flowers up on these hillsides, and you're just making flowers bloom. And I know it sounds, but we play this, and it's like you get into this trance because it's this beautiful music, like classical music, and you're just creating beauty. You're just making a world beautiful. So even at night, like it goes all dark like dusk, and you're still kind of like this little breeze flying around, opening, and they have different kinds of flowers. So it's like, okay, let's go do the tulips, like this. And it's so beautiful. And what was interesting is that it really made your mind super positive. Like this is what the maker, I can't remember the guy that made it, he said, you know, I want people to project good energy in their lives. So I want them to be making beautiful things. And then that gets them in a positive loop where they'll like to see more and more beauty and create more and more beauty. So I thought, oh man, that dude totally knows karma then. So we can do all this where we're doing the positive parts of karma, not just stress. We stress the negative in Buddhism because we're being negative all the time. We have to see that part first, and then we can focus on the good stuff. So that's that. I just wanted to, it was originally, like I say, do a whole course just on that. Now I know we've talked about that before, but I just didn't get a chance over the last couple of weeks with flying. So I just wanted to just give that one teaching there. So we can just open it up for the next 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and just do discussion, a question and answer on, if you want, in particular on Buddhist vows and commitments, the refuge vows and commitments. But in general, if you have a question about karma or Buddhist ethics, comment, sharing, that would be great. What do you guys think?
I don't mind kicking it off with nice to see everybody. I have a question about vows.
Yeah.
Honestly, other than, you know, when we're getting initiations and that, there are vows, but like refuge vows. I mean, I had a pretty brief refuge process with Rinpoche. I don't remember. That doesn't mean things didn't happen. Okay. Like the 5 lay vows, or I don't remember taking some vows for sure. So when one takes vows, is that always like with your Lama? Is it to yourself that you're very consciously, like, what's the process there?
It's both of those, actually. That's a good question. So, I mean, officially you get that done, like I said, when you know, in the old days, you know, where maybe I'm sure some teachers do this still. We have a Buddhist in our community, but in the old days with Rinpoche, we'd actually give a refuge ceremony where you take the refuge vow and you get your hair cut, and, you know, they cut a little bit of hair and you get a refuge name and stuff like that. That's kind of official where you're doing it. But usually what happens is, you know, it's in the terms or context of taking tantric empowerments that you do it. So that's when you take your bodhisattva vow in a tantric empowerment, you're basically taking the refuge and bodhisattva vows together, right? So for lower tantra, that's all you do. If like you're taking a Kriya Tantra empowerment, that's it. And then, of course, with, let's say, Anuttara Yoga, highest yoga tantra empowerment, then you have the tantric empowerments, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, for instance. And it might be the same for yoga tantra, the third level of tantra. I'd have to go look that up. But again, you can see with what I'm saying that if we're creating beautiful worlds and beautiful selves in those worlds, that's all tantra is. Like vows, this is why, like, one of Geshe Michael's students there, she came, gave a talk at the Vancouver Center, you know, whatever, 20 years ago or something, can't remember, Annie Palma. And she said, your vows are your highest practice. Like, getting this straight, getting clear on doing all this, learning to rehabitualize yourself so that you're projecting positive energy is tantra, right? When you're doing your tantric sadhana, it's basically the same process as having your vows and projecting that positive energy out. You're just doing it as a work of art, a performance art. Like, rather doing it now where it's me looking like me now, and I've got my little Dharma book. Okay, number 1, be a nice person on the subway. Number 2, what, you know, you do it, the sadhana, it's just like, oh, I'm this angel made out of energy, only doing beautiful things to everybody and making this beautiful world. You see, like, that's what's interesting, but you're acting out your vows as a Buddha. You're acting out this positive energy. The point is, everything's a performance, everything's an act. Everything's just, you know, kind of like a video game that we're in, right, on this level. And so I remember talking to your Rinpoche student Pedro there, and he was just like, yeah, the whole point is that if you are visualizing yourself as a deity, it's easier to keep your vows, because the point is that reference point isn't your ego. You know, you're sidestepping, you're stepping off the pendulum of all your crazy issues and dramas, and you're a pure angel that's got absolutely no agenda except loving everybody. So it's easier to keep your vows. So what's interesting is keeping your vows in this thing is the highest practice you can do. And that's where the work is. Like I always say with Tantra, we always love all the fancy magic stuff, but the nose to the grinding stone, so to speak, like the real work that you do every day is just trying to keep your vows, trying to create merit, trying to purify negativities, right, of doing all this. So that's where, you know, you go to these ceremonies and take these vows, and then it's just, once you know what they are, you're just working on them, right? Is that clear to answer the question a little bit? Like
it does, thank you, because it's just yeah, you know, recollecting different things and whatnot. But yeah, that puts it in context. Thank you. And it's a great reminder. Like it's really, it's a minute by minute.
It is
Process, keeping the vow. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is, I always give it, like a few months ago, I flew to Bangkok, and on the flight, there was a Theravada monk, Thai monk, going back home. He used to do retreat in the jungle, and he runs one of the Thai centers in Toronto. He introduced himself. I can't remember now. I was so tired. But I said, one, but it's all good. And we're talking and this and that. And then he's leaving. He says, hey, I got to remind you something. I said, yes, please tell me. And he's like, always be mindful at each moment. Practice Vipassana, be mindful at each moment so you can be a good person. Only do positive actions, don't do negative actions. And it's like, yes, monk, you know, Ajahn monk, you know. And so, but that's it. I mean, that's it. The difference is that, let's say in the Theravada, it's you doing it. You Matthew Richards or Patricia doing it, whereas Vajrayana is Green Tara doing it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, the technology is a little different. You know, one's not better. We're not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying, you know, just yes, the emphasis and methodology is a little different. When you do 6-session Guru Yoga, for instance, 6-session Guru Yoga, when you get that for Anuttara Yoga, is a sadhana for your vows, is a sadhana, ironically. So you're supposed to, like, let's say in some ideal world where you're this absolutely amazing practitioner, it's 6 sessions. So every 4 hours, 24 hours a day, you are doing these tantric yogas. So the big thing is you're visualizing yourself, let's say, as Vajradhara, Vajrasattva, and then you read all your vows, right? So you know, you're going over them. So the thing is, nowadays, what you always hear is no one knows what their vows are, so they don't know how to keep them. And then no one, you do a class on vows and no one shows up. Or it's like, I've got the big tantric empowerment, we're all blissing out. Okay, pause for a moment for the next 45 minutes while I go over all the vows. And what happens? Okay, I'm going to Starbucks, see you later, Rinpoche. Like, it's just like at that point you lose everybody, because it's a lot of work going over this, but it's technically understood in a tantric empowerment, those kinds of ceremonies, that that's what's going on, and that your homework is going home and learning all this stuff and doing it. And that's the real work, and that you're in dialogue with your teachers for this process. So 6-session Guru Yoga, everyone does all the little short ones, but if you actually look at the long sadhana, it has you go through your vows. So this is why, like, I did this for years. I don't do it anymore. I've been lazy, blah, blah, blah. But Geshe Michael had that little program 20 years ago, which I think is fabulous, called The Book. You might have heard about that. Every you can do every 4 hours, you check in, or different times of the day, and you go over your vows, or different sets of vows, or maybe you go over one vow. You sort of set, it's like these little sort of positive self-help program. And at that time of the vow, you say, have I been observing this vow? What have I done that's been good about this vow? So I dedicate it. How have I been breaking the vow? So I purify it. So it's the idea in the old days of the Tisha students, he told them to keep, probably remember this from LamRim, back in the 11th century in Tibet, you're in the middle of nowhere in the desert like Arizona. They have, at the end of the day, they get home and they have a little bag of rocks, and they got the white rocks and the black rocks, and then you add them all up. Okay, how many times I'm the guy, I'm always gossiping. I just can't stop gossiping. I put out this, okay, I stopped myself from gossiping 4 times, 4 little white rocks, and then 10 little black rocks, where it's like I totally blew it. And then before I go to bed, I'm like, tomorrow I'm going to try this, right? So I did this for years. It's amazing. And what happens is that the negative side is it can end up being kind of a neurotic, affected quality sort of process, where you become a little bit too didactic, a little bit too neurotic, obsessive compulsive and crazy, which in the end isn't a good way to be. You want to be a lot more open, spacious, not attached, even with this process. But on another hand, it forces you to really be mindful and watch your karma. So you don't have to do it that way, but that way I think is a good way of doing it, having it some kind of a little book thing where you go over your vows. And there's too many to go on. So what I would always do is I'd pick, let's say, 6 different ones a day, and I go through I just say, okay, I'm just like not going to kill today. Let's try not doing it, or I'm not going to lie today, or I'm going to go through the 45 secondary downfalls there, like not giving to people who are asking for charity or something. Have I done that? Have I not done that? I walk by homeless people. I don't give them anything. Someone asks for change. I don't give them. Okay, well, I didn't do well that day, for instance. So you can go through them, and then you've got this amazing practice. That's something to think about anyway. So. Again, like I say, you don't want to become a caricature where you're getting totally hung up and crazy on all this stuff and trying to be good in this. But on the other hand, it's finding that middle, sort of relaxed middle way where you are mindful of your vows and know what you were. What you see is most people don't even know what their vows are. So how can you keep something if you don't know what it is, right? But this is the real work. And like, I'll let everyone, here I am, it's question and answer, I'm doing this talking. But like I always say, 3/4 of the vows, let's say there's 100 vows, 80 of them to 90 of them you're going to be able to keep. They're easy because they're not your issues. Don't run around killing people. Okay, I'll try not to. Every time I go to work, oh my God, I kill everybody. Like there's all sorts of vows where you have no problem keeping them. But what I always say, what's fascinating is the 10 vows you always break, because that shows your character. That really shows your dark side. And then what's interesting is you can do your own analysis of, why is it that I always break those vows? Why is it that I can't do the reverse, their virtue? What's holding me back? And there's always reasons. That's what's amazing. It's always childhood trauma. Yeah, even sometimes it's past life stuff. That doesn't come out of nowhere. So what's interesting is that's where you target your healing, is that specific part of your character. Oh, I'm a miserly person. I can't give. I can't give to people. Well, then why am I not a giving person? Why am I not open with people? Then it's like, well, I remember, I mean, not to blame my parents, but let's say I remember my parents never gave to me from my birthday. And so that made me mad. And I made a vow at 5 years old, I'm never giving anything to anyone to teach my parents a lesson, blah, blah, blah. And then here I am at 50, and it's like this homeless guy, hey, I don't have change, you get out of here. Or it's like my friend, hey, can you lend me $5? No, I'm not lending you $5. And it's like, wow, I always break that vow because of these, I do sort of a genealogy of that issue and find out. And then you can heal that. You can go into that space and heal that. Then all of a sudden you flip the switch from the virtue, from the vice to the virtue. Now all of a sudden I'm a giving person, So yeah. But you won't know that until you work on your vows. Like that will be completely unconscious and inaccessible, that part of your life, until you can apply the mindfulness there with your vows and see that that's happening, right? So.
I have a question.
Yes, you've always got good questions, Maureen. I'm always looking forward to them, so.
Oh, that's nice. You said at one point when you were teaching, you just used a phrase, under the umbrella of refuge. And I've always struggled with the symbolism of various things like umbrellas and canopies and stuff. And I wondered if you could just say a few words about the meaning of umbrellas and canopies and because I think, I think all these symbols are things that can, and you can correct me if this is wrong because I'm trying to figure this out, are, like a symbol is so that you can, in a nutshell, have a concept, instead of a book on whatever you're trying to get, refuge or whatever. And so, if you could just say a couple of words about those symbols and their connection to refuge and vows or whatever.
Sure, absolutely. Sure, I'll try. And again, it won't be exhaustive. There'll be other commentaries and, what I mean? Like just keep adding. And one thing I've always loved about symbolism, I guess, because I like Carl Jung's stuff, is that symbols are in images. That's why art's great. That's why there's archetypes. That's why religion uses symbols and metaphors and beautiful things. Like I know sometimes certain people, even when I was in philosophy, had people that would really get mad at this. There should be symbols. It should just be clear. It's like a computer program, zeros and ones, and it's too ambiguous with symbols. But symbols, the whole point is a lot of times they have multiple meanings at the same time, and it can sort of affect you on a really deep level compared to like just sort of a simple fortune cookie explanation, right? So you get this in Asia, Asian culture, India at the time, where they use these sort of cultural and spiritual symbols and maybe even archetypes, but umbrellas being one of them, right? And it's interesting because I didn't, let's see, when I started studying Buddhism in Toronto 30 years ago or whatever, Toronto's hot in the summer, but I'd never been to Asia. So, when as a flight attendant in, let's say 2001, when I started flying to Asia, I'm like, wow, like I started learning things. And one thing I learned, of course, is how hot it is. Just like you go to India in the summertime. And like, I just had never, especially places like let's say if you're in Taiwan in the sun, I mean, there's just nothing like it. It's just so unbelievably hot and humid. And so at that point, like I remember seeing people holding umbrellas up for the sun, and you think, oh my God, like when you see pictures why would someone do that? Like that's for the rain. But then you go over to a place like that and you're like, oh my God, I totally get it. The expression they use in the English Empire in Hong Kong, like only mad dogs and Englishmen are out in the noonday sun, right? What's that come from? Of course, you're some English colonial in Malaysia or something, you learn. Dummy here, I remember once I had to run an errand in Hong Kong on the island for something at some antique store. And so dummy here, it's like mid-July, and I hop on the subway and I show up on the island there at like noon, and there's like nobody out. And I'm like, oh man, it's like really quiet today on like a Wednesday. And I'm walking around, and then, me, stupid me, like I might have had a tweed jacket on and like my sweater. And so it wasn't that bad. But I remember almost passing out, like with the heat. And then I came back and told my Chinese friends, oh my God, I almost got heat stroke. And they said, well, when did you go out? I said, well, I went out shopping at noon, just out in the markets. And they're like, dude, like no one does that. Like it's 45 degrees. Are you crazy? And then I realized, oh, it's only stray dogs and stupid people like me that don't know any better that go out in the heat, right? So blah, blah, blah. Anyway, where I'm going is that in the culture, you have this idea of umbrellas where they're protecting you even from the sun, right? So it's the nice, cool shade. So when you're looking at refuge, like that's what's interesting, is that when you're coming from more of a Semitic background, being Jewish or Christian, let's say, or even Muslim in Western countries, you don't use that term refuge. I mean, it's a complete, you talk about faith, for instance, or other things, or I know with my Christian friends say, it's the whole thing is, are you saved? Are you redeemed? So they use that kind of like, and so in other words, they say, I accept Jesus, or I believe in Jesus. That's the language they use. So when you go to Buddhism, it's like, are you taking refuge? Have you taught refuge? And it's like, what does that mean? That's refuge. And so you have to think about it like refuge. That means, am I a refugee? I want to go to the UN camp to get food and shelter. Am I taking refuge from the hailstorm? It's like spring hail coming down. Oh, it's hit my head. I have to run under the bus shelter there. And it's ding, 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 hitting the roof. So that's the analogy. So they use the umbrella as the analogy for that. That's what protects you from the rain, protects you from the crazy heat you get, like let's say in a place like Hong Kong or India. So what is protecting you? The ultimate form of protection. Like we always say, we're going for refuge all the time. Every time you're anxious or bored, waiting like the bank like me, and oh, I got my phone, whatever, checking Instagram, oh, another stupid puppy video, or like I'm taking refuge there. Like rather than facing my existential angst of being bored, I'm diverting myself with an entertainment. We're always taking refuge in things, but we're taking refuge in worldly things, which don't really don't work for very long. So the ultimate refuge, of course, that you take, which is solving all your problems, the medicine for everything, is, of course, emptiness, and in particular, emptiness and karma. So that's the real umbrella. And what's interesting is that it goes to show you, like I always said, you've got this funny thing about the once you really understand refuge, you see that the only refuge is in the fact that you can't take refuge in anything except emptiness, which isn't a refuge in anything particular. You're just taking refuge in karma and stuff. In other words, you're taking refuge in your own power to change your mind. That your mind, because it has no nature, is completely flexible or plastic and can change. Reality is completely flexible and plastic, so you can change it. So that instantly is the real refuge, because at that point you're no longer scared. Refuge is always fear and faith, right? Like fear of suffering, and so I have confidence in something to stop that suffering. Well, once I understand refuge and karma, refuge and emptiness, at that point I no longer have any fear of anything. I see everything is just my own reflection, my mind. Everything is just karma. So it's completely changeable. So I have the umbrella that I have, but at that point, technically, I no longer need the umbrella. And that's when Hagakure, famous samurai treatise, which is all infused with Zen Buddhism, he says, I can't remember the guy's name, he's a samurai writer in the Tokugawa period, but he says it's a great thing. He said, when it's raining, don't be like these dummies that run tree to tree trying not to get wet and get wet anyway. Or they run under they're running under the eaves, like whatever, like the little shelter or something like this, and they have to run to the next tree because they get wet anyway, and they're super anxious. He says a real samurai, a real warrior, Zen warrior, walks right through the rain and gets wet. Because when you're in that state, the rain's not going to bother you. Is that kind of like, it's interesting. It's like when you have real refuge, that umbrella is with you at all times. It's almost like you don't have to try and run tree to tree to tree to. Is that, have I just confused you, Maureen? Is that, I hope that
No, I'm just that's helpful. It's just like when I'm like, say, like when Yoko got married, there was a canopy over her as she was proceeding to be married. So I was just like, what would that just symbolize, that she has taken refuge and she, I just wasn't clear on, like.
Well, they do things like also.
Like, why do we have them on certain pictures and certain ceremonies and.
Yeah, well, you can have it again, like it represents again the refuge, but it's also honoring someone. Like in a hot place like that, if I can shade you, it's kind of like the old things where you have the people fanning the king or whatever. That's a big deal. Like you have in the old Indian symbolism where you have someone special that you love, you're protecting them, giving them shade, giving them coolness, right. Protect them from the sun, or let's say it's raining or humid or there's whatever. That's sort of a royal symbol as well. And that's why they have all the different possessions of a quote unquote Chakravartin emperor or empress, or like world leader, like huge G20 summit person, world leader. What do they have? They have these things. Like now you have BMW, you have, you know, the media.
So it's like it's more like, it's not about symbolizing that she has taken refuge. It's more about Kwame giving her refuge.
I guess
because
so.
she was holding the umbrella, now that I think about it.
So it is a way of honoring the person. What's funny is once you take refuge, again, it's kind of interesting. You could honor yourself that way. Like in a lot of ways, we are a great world leader in our own mind from taking refuge, because the moment you take refuge and generate bodhicitta and you're sincere, you're almost, not that it's about building up your ego, of course, but you're almost worthy of that kind of respect on a spiritual level. Why? Because you're making karma and emptiness your main practice and your main focal point, which is the highest understanding of reality. So that is the emperor or empress level of reality, right? So you almost deserve to have those possessions to honor yourself as sort of like a divine person. Like this
So
is
like
I'm not saying this is ego, like, oh my God, I'm so special now. I'm
no,
enlightened.
no.
You know what I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like when you do your dedication in Vajrayogini, for instance, and they say, you know, may I, now I've forgotten the words, you know, at the time of my death, may I be met with umbrellas and canopies and whatever. That is, well, it's basically kind of saying, may I, at that time, have the understanding of emptiness and karma, and be in a place in my consciousness that I will have refuge.
Yeah, and you do. The thing is, like, practicing Vajrayogini practice and being sincere about it, when you do die and are met by Vajrayogini Dakinis, they're honoring you with that. It's almost like you graduate. You know, when you have your 50th birthday and your friends come and put the little 50th birthday crown on you, and oh, you know, you're amazing, and take pictures, and you're like the princess for the day. It's kind of like that. Like when Vajrayogini meets you, stuff, it's like, you've created the karma for this experience, having been an amazing yogini your whole life. We're honoring you. You're the queen for the day. I'm the queen Vajrayogini, but you're the queen too, and you're going to Pure Dakini land with me. It's like, you've graduated, you've done it. We can't believe it. That's amazing. You know, we're honoring you. That's what's so sweet. Like when you do dedication or auspicious prayers and in Vajrayana sadhanas, a lot of times the visualization is, when you're saying everything be auspicious, but how you visualize it, all the Buddhas are around you throwing flowers at you, honoring you. We love you. We can't believe you're finally figuring out emptiness. You know, this is a big deal. Like, you've been here for 10 million years and finally you're seeing through the card trick. Like, this is a celebration. We graduated years ago. You failed grade 10 12 times in a row. You're finally getting through grade 10. Amazing. Oh my God, we're taking you out for lunch. So there's this, you know, the Buddhas are happy. They're oh my God, Maureen's doing it. She finally got it. She's getting enlightened. Wow. So they're throwing flowers and honoring you as kind of like being the queen. So the umbrella, you know, for protection, but also honoring, giving her shade, feeding her grapes, you know, having the big fan, you know, we love you. You're the queen. You're great. Right. So it's interesting.
That's helpful.
From very basic refuge of just going to a temple, I take refuge, I take refuge. In the end, you end up there where you almost become a royal divine person. Why? Because really, this is the whole point to Buddhism, is karma and emptiness, right? From beginning to end. And eventually you start seeing it. Oh my goodness, wow, this is amazing. It's beautiful. And then you understand, like I remember my friend Chuck always said, you know, this is a big question they have in debating me. Do Buddhas take refuge? Right. They don't suffer, so do they need to take refuge, right? Good question, big debate, everyone yelling at each other in the debate ground. Do Buddhists take refuge? Always looks like they're taking refuge. Kuan Yin's always like this, but they don't need to take refuge, they don't suffer. So what are they doing? And then Chuck says, oh, Buddhas are refuge. Buddhas are refuge. You become a refuge. So even as a Buddhist, what's amazing is we'll see with the Bodhisattva vows, where they say you become worthy to receive offerings from humans and bodhisattvas and non-humans when you are generating bodhicitta. So in other words, Lama Zopa Rinpoche always said, when you generate bodhicitta, it's like you become refuge in the world for everyone around you. When you're trying hard to be a Buddhist and keeping your vows, all of a sudden you become the umbrella for everyone around you, your family, your friends, because your energy is so positive that they end up being protected by you. And that's why you have all the stories, true stories that yogis, yoginis are meditating, and then let's say a deer is being hunted by some Tibetan hunters. The deer runs into the cave and lies at the yogi's feet. Like, protect me, oh my God. And what it is even the animals know, oh, this person's really special. When we had the FPMT relics at Zurling 20 years ago, I don't know if some of you guys were there, there's a famous thing. It was just like, the energy was insane. And some guy was trying to take his golden retriever out in the condo building, and the golden retriever, I was there, I saw this in person, this isn't a story, ran away from the guy, like, he dropped the lead, and the golden retriever ran down we were in the hall, ran down the hall, and then ran into the temple. I don't know if you guys were there, if Sue, you were there, or whatever. Anyway, ran into the temple and then went like this, and was like prostrating in front of the big stupa with all the relics. It was nuts. It was, he's not making that up. And it was like, he was taking refuge. The golden retriever is like, this is the safe place. Like, I feel safe and protected here. He was literally like this. And you've seen that. I've seen animals do this in stupas and stuff in Nepal and everything. So if you keep your vows, become like that stupa for everyone around you. So.
Great,
anyway,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know what that, I think, Christina was just making coffee there. I wonder what's that strange noise? Anyway, so any other questions before we finish? And we'll have another question and answer on the Bodhisattva vows. So, if you have a question, after this, just keep it for the next one there. But anything else before we conclude here? Is that okay? Or what do you think? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So thank you. Yeah.
Just one little thing.
Yeah.
Where do we find, like, I've got a few different books, of course, but where do we find lists about?
Okay, well, this one, I have it. There's everything. The one thing about the internet, everything's online. If you just do a Google search, refuge vows and commitments, bing. So depending, you want to see, obviously, if it's particular Gelugpa school, but all the other 3 schools of Tibetan Buddhism, it's probably identical or near identical. And I like reading other schools' list of vows, because you can always learn from it. Like, I love reading Zen vows. I love if it's a Thai center, like, what are your vows? Oh my God, let me take a look. They're always good. It's always the same kind of thing. And I always like, even there's this one Nyingma group in the UK that I like, our own Nyingma group, and the way they write their vows, like how they perceive them, is really, really interesting. Their tantric vows. So that's always inspiring to me. I'm always like, oh, that sounds great. Oh, I like the way they phrase that for that vow. I like the way, like Thich Nhat Hanh, when you see the way he has all the lists, it's just incredible, right? They apply to you. You can, even though you're Gelugpa, you're like, oh, Thich Nhat Hanh, I'm gonna follow his vows too. They fit in with mine. So I know this one, like there is an old NKT one I have, it's called the Bodhisattva vow. I know on the FPMT website, Lama Zopa's group, they have lots of good stuff too, if you look. And they might have free stuff, like if you just go on some of these Dharma websites, so you'll find a web page where they have them listed. None of it's secret, it's all basic Buddhism. And I will make just a quick dedication here. Lama Zopa Rinpoche is still in Tukdam. He, of course, passed into perinirvana just a few days ago. It was a big shock, even though he was older and had recently had a stroke a few years ago, if you remember. And his student and teacher there, Kandrila, has been doing a lot of stuff, but it's still, for normal people like me, it's still very, very sad. He's enlightened. We've always felt that he's a manifestation of Buddha Hayagriva, and just, talking to Rinpoche about it because they're classmates, they're Trijang Rinpoche students. And, Rinpoche was like, they don't make them like that anymore. Like, you're probably never going to see someone like Lama Zopa in the world now. He was just so pure, amazing, so old school, so strict, but so kind. Everyone, like so many people I know over the years went to Kopan Monastery for the LamRim course and got teachings from him. And he was such a Buddha. And they always, the story, right? You had Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa, good cop, bad cop, right? Like Lama Yeshe is like, everything's blessed, take it easy, everything's okay. And Lama Zopa was like, oh my God, don't go to hell, watch your karma. Like, it was just this perfect thing. But he did so much good stuff in the world. And he was just so pure and kept the standards so high and was just really, 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 really wonderful. So they, there's been recently, as you know, a lot of obstacles and problems around His Holiness Dalai Lama in the media and stuff. And so I don't want to get too, I don't like when people start getting all superstitious about, oh, this is the real reason this happened, because I don't know. I don't know the karma of the situation and all. But Kandrolad said that Lama Zopa passed into parinirvana as a way of removing a lot of these obstacles to His Holiness's life. So that goes to show that in the end, Lama Zopa was always giving, including giving his life to benefit other people. He was just absolutely amazing. So he's meditating right now. He's like the highest quality Lama. So he's still in meditation now that he's passed away, and we can just think about him. And I will recommend, he's got so many good books, but he's got that one book on Guru Yoga. I can't remember the name of it. It's in my bookshelf there. That's absolutely amazing book. That he wrote on Guru devotion, just saying, you want to read from a book from him. So there we go. Thank you. And may we all be as good as Lama Zopa Rinpoche one day. We can make a prayer for that. May our karma be as good. May our practice be as good. So by the blessings of all holy beings, all the Buddhas, truth of karma, the path of pure spirit intention, may all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. Sentient beings reach enlightenment. Okay, I'll just press stop here. Thank you so much.